Good morning. Good morning. How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, and I am riding solo this AM and hitting on everything NFL related. The championship weekend is set up in the NFL, and as much as things change, they seem to stay the same. Yet another heartbreak for the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs. They provided us another classic. The Green Bay Packers yet again falling short to the San Francisco 49ers, this time with a little bit of a narrative switch because of the young quarterback in Jordan Love. Not the same kind of depression out in Green Bay, similar to what they went through with the Aaron Rodgers era. The Detroit Lions just made their first NFC title game since the 1991 season. And the NFL's best team, in many people's estimations, the Baltimore Ravens, survived a flat first half and really leaned on what got them as far as they have gotten, which is the run game, which is the defense, holding off rookie sensation CJ Stroud and really putting a hurting on the Houston Texans in the second half. But I got to start in upstate New York. This was truly a classic, but I feel so terrible for Bills Mafia. These people are just such phenomenal fans. Bills lose another heartbreaker. Missed opportunities and questionable play calling topped with a missed field goal spell the Bills' demise. The Kansas City Chiefs are advancing to their sixth straight, read that twice, AFC title game. A lot of electricity in the air. I personally believe that when it comes to the total football experience, there's really no place quite like Buffalo, the way that those people tailgate, the way that they just celebrate their team. Jason Kelsey, brother of Travis, in the house, shirtless for half the game, in the press box, hitting the tailgate, hanging with Bills Mafia. Goes without saying, Taylor Swift was in the building. Just kind of like a star-studded affair. The intensity was there. Buffalo Bills just could not execute in crunch time. Potential 50-yard bomb that could have really swayed the tide. A pass, in my opinion, that Stephon Diggs probably should have caught, went through his hands. Final drive of the game, Josh Allen missed Diggs on an underneath route. He chose to try to force one into the back of the end zone, which probably should have been intercepted. There was a fumble on the final drive that the Bills were very fortunate to recover. But I've got to give the Chiefs credit here because this is a team going into this game that was very vulnerable. You're talking about a lot of injuries that they've experienced during the year. A lot of just poor play on offense and sporadic play on offense during the year. This is probably the toughest season that the Kansas City Chiefs have endured during the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era. And that goes without saying just from the offensive struggles that this team has had. But I really believe that what's the shocker of all here is that the Bills just couldn't get it done. I really believe that unless if you grew up in Missouri or if you're on the Chiefs wagon, much of America was rooting for the Buffalo Bills. More so than that, I don't think that Buffalo is ever going to be able to get the Kansas City Chiefs this vulnerable again. And, this leads to a lot of questions coming in the offseason. Does Buffalo need to reevaluate this roster on a grander level? Because, when you have a window to win a championship, it closes rather quickly if you don't get it within a 4 to 5 year window. And that's kind of what Buffalo has allowed to happen. This is the third time in the last 5 years that Kansas City has ended their season. Buffalo did a great job of stealing, in my opinion, the AFC East during the last month of the year. The Dolphins kind of imploded, which allowed Buffalo to get the 2 seed. But for the second consecutive year, the Bills season ends at home in front of the home faithful. And I think it's just crazy to me because now it seems like Josh Allen, who I have a world of respect for, I feel that he gets a little too much shit from the media and those who cover football because it seems like you only hear about the turnovers, but you don't hear that the man accounted for more than 45 total touchdowns. The man has more rushing touchdowns than most running backs, not to mention just missing 30 in the air. But as I said at the top of the show, things still don't change. I think that Buffalo puts way too much on Josh Allen. This defense is not as good as they were a couple of years ago. I don't know how much more a guy like Von Miller has left in the tank. The Gabe Davis absence was felt in a big way. And, now you got to really evaluate it top to bottom because this was the setup. This was the year for Buffalo to finally make the AFC title game again and see if they can get over that hurdle and get back to a Super Bowl. The Chiefs, like them or not, they deserve all the credit. A lot of people naturally thought that with Patrick Mahomes having to go on the road, first time in his playoff career, that it wasn't a Super Bowl, that he had to go on the road. Very tough environment in Buffalo, that it was just not going to go his way. Isaiah Pacheco, in my estimation, the star of the offense during this game, just getting the hard yards. But for the Bills to lose the way they did, anybody that knows NFL history and knows Bills history, this is a team that kind of, in a strange way, has become the lovable losers because in the 90s, they went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. But the narrative started with them losing a 1-point heartbreaker to my New York Giants on a Scott Norwood wide right missed field goal out in Tampa. That was the only Super Bowl of the 4 that they truly should have won, if we're going to be completely honest. They marched into 3 more Super Bowls and got dusted by the Redskins and then the Cowboys in 2 consecutive years. The Kelly era ended. They fell on hard times, going through a lot of quarterbacks. Josh Allen, probably the most popular player in Buffalo since Bruce Smith and Jim Kelly's era. But I think this is an evaluation top to bottom. Coach Sean McDermott, I don't know if he's the guy anymore. But you talk about just a team that you feel after a while that they might be cursed. For Tyler Bass in that scenario, you have an opportunity to tie the game with less than 2 minutes left, and it's wide right. Everybody knows that is linked to their history. There have been Buffalo fans on the comedic level that have actually gotten shirts with the Norwood going to the right. It's heartbreaking on a lot of levels. I mean, you saw grown men crying in the crowd. These people are very devoted to their team in a way that not too many fan bases are. We saw the whole country come together last year when Damar Hamlin made a miraculous recovery. Thankfully, he did. I think without question, he's the comeback player of the year. Speaking of Damar, I know that there's been a lot of controversy about that punt, that fake punt. While I don't know if I would have went that route, Kansas City only had 10 men on the field for that play. So I do believe that the Bills were just trying to catch them off guard. But as much as I do like Josh Allen, and as much as I applaud him for being just a true professional in defeat, because a lot of guys don't want to hear from the media, don't want to talk to the media, don't want to hear nothing. This guy praised his teammates. He talked about his teammates on a bigger level past football. They're great husbands. They're great fathers. He talked about the Bills Mafia just being such a great fan base. And I really think that from a leadership standpoint, Josh Allen checks all the dots. Stephon Diggs, who, there has been friction over the past couple of seasons, particularly going into this one, that perhaps he's not happy. I believe that he needed to step up and he didn't. You talk about being a number 1 receiver in this league. He came up quite small. And I think it just flips back and goes back to what I've been saying, that way too much is put on the shoulders of Josh Allen. But I do believe that if the Bills are going to get to the next level, they got to get honest with themselves and potentially consider a coaching change. This was not a good weekend for kickers. I'm going to hit on Green Bay in a little while, but we know what happened there with Anders Carlson. Tyler Bass has been up and down, but definitely shaky at different junctures of the year. But I do believe that this one is going to hurt Buffalo a little more because of knowing that this is the first time that they truly appeared to have the Chiefs, that everything lined up perfectly for them. The Chiefs are going to be taking on a Baltimore Raven team that on the eye test and on paper is supposed to beat them. But at this juncture of the year, do I really want to count out the Chiefs? I don't know. Something that doesn't get spoken a lot about because it's not flashy. The Chiefs' defense and running game has been a big factor in why they are going where they are going right now. Got a comment coming in. Let's see what this is about. Richard Dorney, my man. Allen wasted that third down when he threw in the end zone. Should have just gone for first. Wide right. Hashtag. Yeah, Rich. He looked very uncomfortable on that final drive. I will say this. The throw would have gotten where it needed to go if Chris Jones didn't push Josh Allen's lineman literally into the center of his back. But I agree. He missed Diggs there. There looked like just a lot of sloppiness on that final drive. I mean, they were breaking the first downs, but it just seemed like they worked so hard. And even on that fumble where he was trying to extend for more yardage, they were so fortunate to keep that drive going on multiple occasions. And you got to tip your hat to Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the guy who shut down, in my opinion, the greatest offense in NFL history in the 07 Pats, Super Bowl 42. This guy doesn't nearly get enough credit. But the Chiefs did it the old-fashioned way, and the Chiefs did it the hard way. Running the rock, playing stout defense, and on certain drives, holding the Bills to less than what they could have or should have gotten. I think it's going to be a phenomenal matchup. But, you know, Lamar Jackson's trying to bring that playoff record up to snuff while also a Super Bowl bid on the line. This is Lamar's first AFC title game. This is a place where Patrick Mahomes has lived. We haven't seen this kind of regularity of going to title games since the New England Patriots with Brady and Belichick. The Chiefs, while I don't really want to see them win, and I am absolutely sick of seeing them win, they deserve all the credit right now. And, you know, championship caliber teams or even guys that have the heart of a champion that maybe don't have the talent in previous years, they find ways to win. And sadly, Buffalo found a way to lose this game. Tyler Bass, I don't see how he recovers from this in a Buffalo uniform. I think they're going to move on in that regard too. I don't like blaming a loss on one player. There were a lot of missed opportunities, but that is just the worst. And we know how with kickers, you know, they don't remember the ones you make nearly as much as the ones you miss. I mean, Rich, take it back to 07, Lawrence Tynes missing 2 potential game winners in frigid Lambeau. If he doesn't kick the third one in overtime, how would he be remembered? I also think the history of the Chiefs always coming out on top was in the Bills players' heads. Yeah, it's definitely some mental blocks going there. That monkey on the back doesn't come off until you get it off. No doubt, Rich. I couldn't agree anymore. Similar to what we've struggled with in our division with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys with the Green Bay Packers, even going back to the Rodgers era and now the Love era. You know, certain teams cannot get certain teams out of their head, and there is indeed a mental block. But quite frankly, I think Buffalo overachieved this year when you consider the injuries that they had. Yeah, twice for that. Well, Rich, baseball season's coming up. We're going to get you on our NL East preview show. I want to hear what you got to say about your Metsies. Going to move it along to the Motor City. Lions, a team of destiny, make their first NFC championship game since the 1991 season. They lost to the Redskins, now the Commanders. Jared Goff and his receiving corps, just too much for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to handle. I'll be honest, guys, there's a lot of parity in the NFL. And while I don't want to take anything away from former Giants tight end, now current Lions coach Dan Campbell, man who I have a lot of respect for, I do believe that with the Philly implosion and with Dallas just getting run by the Green Bay Packers, it set up an incredibly favorable playoff scenario for the Lions for 2 consecutive weeks. They squeaked by the Rams by 1 point. To put it in perspective of parity, this is the same Rams team that the Giants only lost to by a point. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost their 9th game of the season yesterday. Does anybody remember a team that lost 9 games this juncture of the year still being in the playoffs? A game away from the title game? I mean, it has happened, but it's super rare. With the extra playoff invite, you've got 7 in each conference right now. Sometimes you're going to get this. I'm not going to take anything away from the Detroit Lions, but I want people to understand that when you really thoroughly look at the Detroit Lions schedule, I don't believe they've really beaten anybody that's that great this year. The best team they've beaten in terms of total wins is the Los Angeles Rams, who won 10. They split with the Green Bay Packers. They got run off the field by the Baltimore Ravens earlier in the year, and they did beat a Chiefs team without Kelsey, without Jones opening night. I would love to see the Lions win. I am far from a 49er fan, but I just think that the Lions are going to meet their match next week, and it might actually be quite ugly. The Lions secondary, I believe, is still their Waterloo. I think they're actually a year ahead of schedule because they are in the title game right now. But I think it speaks to the parity in the NFC and that the AFC this particular year is a much superior conference. That is my genuine opinion. I'm not trying to shit on the Lions, just what I think. You too, Rich. I hope you have a great day, buddy. Thanks for stopping in, dude. I hope you have an excellent day. How's that weather in New York? Got to get out there in the spring, watch a ball game with you. Yeah, the Detroit Lions, friend of the show, Mike Zappi, I think made a good point. If they're going to pull off an upset in Frisco, Santa Clara to be exact, they're going to have to get that running game going similar to how Green Bay was able to. But when I think about the defense that Green Bay offered versus what the Lions bring, I don't feel that confident. And I don't see the Lions as the same team on grass as they are in Ford Field. So I think it's going to be a very uphill battle. I'm not going to give my prediction now, but I think anybody could tell which way I'm going with that. I just think the 49ers, top to bottom, are the most talented team in the NFL. They are the exception in the NFC. Because when I look at who we consider elite, who else would be deemed elite in the NFC outside of the 49ers? It's not the Lions, no disrespect. It can't be the Cowboys when they're choking around 1. And it can't be the team that was the defending conference champions that imploded a month before the playoffs started, in the Philadelphia Eagles. In the AFC, you can make a logical argument that you have 4 teams that are capable of beating anybody from the NFC. Sometimes it's like that. In the 90s, the NFC was like that. The Super Bowl was basically the NFC title game back then. The Ravens wake up in the second half, and their defense and running game rises to the occasion, despite the Texans, DeMeco Ryans, their defense making a lot of adjustments. Lamar Jackson gets his second playoff win. This is a huge one. He's trying to flip the narrative about him being a loser. He did get dinged up, should be all right. I'm going to say this. I felt in the first half the nerves were really getting to the Baltimore Ravens. They're expected to win. They had a horrible experience last time they were in a similar position as a 1 seed. The Houston Texans have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. CJ Stroud is just a rookie. This team has a very bright future ahead of them. And when I think about that division next year, you got Anthony Richardson, who I'm not even sure if he's even going to be a bust. I don't like to put that on a guy that got hurt so early in his career. But I don't see the Colts being better than this team next year. Jacksonville's having their share of issues with Trevor Lawrence, who, in my opinion, has regressed some. I think it's theirs to win. And the Titans just fired their coach. They're in rebuild mode. I think the Texans are going to be around for quite some time. But the Baltimore Ravens, a lot of people's fears, my buddy Brett, who comes on the show frequently, was afraid that they were going to be a little rusty. Perhaps they were in the first half. But that second half performance looked like the Ravens team that has been the AFC's best for a good chunk of the year. And this is going to be a war. I think this could be the kind of game where both quarterbacks take it up to a different place. No prediction yet, but all I'm going to say is hard to go against the Chiefs right now, given their playoff pedigree and their experience. But Lamar Jackson, this is the biggest game of his life. Patrick Mahomes has been there and done that. Before I get out of here, got to hit on this one. The 49ers survive a scare against the 7-seeded Packers. What the Niners must do to avoid a Lions upset, and why Deebo Samuel is so important to the team. Outside of their best offensive lineman, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel is the most important player on this offense. I didn't say he was the best. Christian McCaffrey is probably the most talented and the most versatile. The best. He's the best. But what Deebo brings in terms of his ability to run the route tree, downfield blocking, emotional leader, and just versatility that we saw even before McCaffrey was a member of this team, when Deebo was serving as their premier running back, when they had a ton of injuries a few years back. Similar to the Chiefs, the 49ers frequently find themselves in championship weekend, but they have not been able to get over the hump since they ran into the Chiefs in the 2019 season, a game that they allowed the Chiefs to come back in after having a sizable lead in the fourth quarter. This Niners team, in my opinion, gets past the scare. Green Bay deserves a medal for the almost upset that they pulled. Almost. Matt LaFleur, good coaching job this year, but I did question his clock management at the end of the game. I did not quite understand why he didn't call a timeout earlier. The reason the Packers did not win this game, though, is simple. They could not get sixes when they needed them. 49ers have an excellent defense. Let's not lose sight of that. But I see Green Bay as just getting better and better. Similar to what I said about Stroud, Jordan Love is in a good place. And once again, no disrespect to the Lions, but I said on this show less than a week ago that if the Packers somehow won, they were better than either team in Detroit. And if that's what I think about the 7 seed, I think you have a good idea what I think about the 1 seed. The only team that can stop the 49ers in the NFC is the 49ers themselves. Brock Purdy's going to be a lot better. The loss of Deebo definitely hurt. And I also think that the rain, to a certain level, slowed down their offense. Jordan Love, huge rookie mistake at the end of the game. Anders Carlson in a situation that could have put the team up by 7. He's missed the most kicks this year, whether extra points or field goals combined. He's missed the most. Tyler Bass, the guy I talked about earlier, was also very erratic this year. Green Bay's in a good place. And I'm confident to say that barring mass injuries to this roster, going into next year, they're my pick to win the North, assuming that they stay healthy and continue to add talent. These guys are so young. It was a fearless attitude that they brought in. And I know that at this juncture of the year, guys are playing with house money that made it this far, like the Lions, like the Packers did. But good times coming for Green Bay in the near future. San Francisco 49ers, you hope Deebo plays. You want the best people on the field. But with Deebo or without Deebo, the 49ers should dispose of the Detroit Lions. Lions are a great story, and it would be awesome to see them go. You can kind of have like Eminem versus Taylor Swift. That'd be interesting in its own right. But until next time, I am Richie. Announcements to come for our next show. But more than likely, we will be going live with our conference championship previews Wednesday night. I look to have Brett, Idris, and Zappy all in the building. Please like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. And I hope you guys have a great Monday and an even better week. Before I get out of here, got to shout out my stepdad, Eddie. Happy birthday. Thank you for being an instrumental part of helping raise me. You have always been my other father. And now that I've lost my father some years ago now, 6, I just appreciate you always being there for me, even more so now. Love you very much, Eddie. And thank you for all the life lessons. You are an amazing dad. Have a great day, everyone. Make today count.